Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Israel restricts aid operations in Gaza. Countries fear a worsening humanitarian crisis. The U.S. conducted a secret strike on Venezuela. Russia-Ukraine negotiations remain blocked. West African nations retaliate against U.S. travel bans. UAE exits Yemen following a Saudi attack. Jimmy Lai's health declines in prison. Thailand releases captured Cambodian soldiers. Doumbouya wins controversially in Guinea. Khaleda Zia dies, mourned as first female prime minister. Bella 1 displays a Russian flag during pursuit. U.S. stock market finishes 2025 strongly. Gold and silver prices suggest a potential 2026 downturn. Disney faces a $10 million fine for privacy violations. Train collisions at Machu Picchu cause fatalities. Glacier melt increases volcanic eruption risks. Israel to suspend operations of several aid groups in Gaza as countries warn of renewed catastrophic humanitarian crisis. A growing international outcry surrounds Israel's decision to suspend the operations of over 30 aid organizations, including Doctors Without Borders, MSF, operating in Gaza, primarily due to non-compliance with new registration requirements. These requirements mandate the provision of detailed staff information, raising significant safety concerns for humanitarian workers. The move follows warnings from 10 foreign ministers that Gaza's humanitarian situation is facing renewed deterioration amidst harsh winter conditions. The core of the dispute lies in Israel's justification for the suspension, citing concerns about Hamas potentially exploiting international aid. However, aid organizations argue the demands are unreasonable, posing a direct threat to staff safety, particularly given the ongoing risks faced by humanitarian workers in Gaza. Several organizations, including Oxfam and MSF, have reported repeated denials of vital aid shipments, further exacerbating the already dire situation. The suspension has triggered a broader condemnation of Israel's policies regarding humanitarian access. The UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk labeled the decision outrageous and arbitrary, emphasizing the detrimental impact on the civilian population. Concerns are mounting about the potential for increased suffering, with estimates indicating that over 1.3 million people require urgent shelter, and nearly half of Gaza's health facilities are partially functional due to supply shortages. The situation is compounded by severe winter conditions, including heavy rainfall and plummeting temperatures, which have destroyed makeshift shelters and led to numerous deaths. Furthermore, the collapse of sanitation infrastructure has left a significant portion of the population vulnerable to toxic flooding. Despite Israel's claims of facilitating increased aid deliveries, the foreign ministers emphasized the need for immediate action, including ensuring uninterrupted access for international NGOs and bolstering the flow of humanitarian assistance. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, currently on a visit to the United States, reiterated the necessity of disarming Hamas as a prerequisite for a stable future for Gaza, while President Donald Trump expressed support for Israel's actions. The international community remains deeply divided, with Israel maintaining its stance while facing mounting pressure to alleviate the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. The U.S. carried out a covert strike on a Venezuelan dock facility. The United States has escalated its pressure campaign against Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro with a clandestine CIA-led drone strike on a dock facility within Venezuela, reportedly used for loading drug smuggling boats. While President Donald Trump initially disclosed the operation, details remain scarce, fueling concerns about the administration's approach to foreign policy. The strike, believed to have occurred in an unspecified dock area, is part of a broader strategy aimed at destabilizing Maduro's regime. The operation follows a pattern of U.S. military action targeting alleged drug trafficking vessels in the Caribbean and Pacific, resulting in over 100 deaths. The U.S. Southern Command confirmed 2 narco-terrorists were killed in a kinetic strike on Monday, though evidence supporting the drug smuggling allegations remains absent. The administration has declared the Cartel of the Suns, embedded within Maduro's power structure, a foreign terrorist organization, justifying military intervention. The strike has prompted heightened scrutiny of the U.S.'s motives and actions. Critics question the administration's rationale, particularly given the limited evidence linking Venezuela to fentanyl trafficking, a major driver of the U.S. opioid crisis. The administration's actions also raise constitutional concerns regarding military intervention on foreign soil. Several key figures and factions are driving the escalation. President Trump, through his impulsive pronouncements, has taken center stage, while Secretary of State Mike Pompeo has consistently framed the operation as a defense against narco-terrorism. Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller seeks a U.S.-friendly government in Venezuela to facilitate the return of undocumented migrants. Former Senator Marco Rubio, a long-standing Western Hemisphere hawk, advocates for destabilizing left-wing autocracies. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth's aggressive stance contributes to the overall strategy. The operation aligns with a broader national security strategy, dubbed the Trump Corollary, to the Monroe Doctrine, which emphasizes U.S. preeminence in the Western Hemisphere. This strategy seeks to control migration, combat drug flows, and counter non-hemispheric competitors. The administration's actions have ignited legal and constitutional alarms, raising questions about the scope of presidential authority and the potential for unintended consequences. The unfolding situation underscores a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy, characterized by covert operations, assertive rhetoric, and a renewed focus on regional influence. Russia-Ukraine peace talks remain stalled amidst key disagreements. Despite ongoing negotiations, a definitive Russia-Ukraine peace agreement remains elusive due to several fundamental disagreements. The primary obstacles center around territorial control, particularly the Donbas region, and the future of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Russia's insistence on retaining control over the entirety of Donbass, including cities like Sloviansk and Kramatorsk, clashes directly with Ukraine's proposal for a demilitarized zone, an economic zone policed by international forces. Ukraine argues that this is essential to protect its population and prevent further Russian advances. The situation at the Zaporizhzhia plant, occupied by Russia since March 2022, is equally contentious. While the plant's reactors are currently in a shutdown mode, Ukraine insists on demilitarization and a free economic zone to ensure its safety and ability to resume electricity generation. Reliant on rebuilding the destroyed Kakhovka Dam, Russia, through its Rosatom agency, maintains that only Russia can guarantee the plant's security, even suggesting a joint enterprise with the U.S., a proposal Kyiv rejects. A significant lack of trust between the parties is a major impediment. President Zelensky expresses deep skepticism toward Putin's intentions, highlighting a lack of faith demonstrated by Russia's accusations of Ukrainian drone attacks on Putin's residence. Ukraine is seeking security guarantees, including a potential NATO-style response to future Russian aggression and maintaining a substantial military force. Financial considerations also present a hurdle, with Ukraine estimating $800 billion in losses and seeking contributions from Russia, potentially utilizing frozen assets. Russia refuses to allow access to these assets and opposes Ukraine's bid to join NATO. The possibility of a referendum within Ukraine to determine the future of a peace deal remains uncertain, further complicating the process. Ultimately, the divergent priorities and profound lack of mutual trust are significantly hindering progress toward a lasting resolution. West African nations respond to U.S. travel ban with reciprocal measures. In a tit-for-tat response to a recent expansion of U.S. travel restrictions, Mali and Burkina Faso have announced a ban on entry for all U.S. citizens. This decision follows the placement of both countries under full entry restrictions implemented by President Donald Trump's administration, which also included South Sudan, Syria, and the Palestinian Authority. The West African nations asserted their actions were based on the principle of reciprocity, emphasizing mutual respect and sovereign equality. Mali's foreign ministry expressed regret over the U.S.'s unilateral decision, highlighting the lack of prior consultation. This development coincides with reports that Niger has also imposed a similar travel ban on U.S. citizens, though an official confirmation from Niger's foreign ministry remains pending. The three countries, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, are currently governed by military juntas that seized power through coups and have formed their own regional bloc, shifting their allegiance towards Russia following strained relationships with other West African states and Western powers. The U.S. administration's decision, effective January 1st, aimed to bolster national security by imposing full entry restrictions on these countries, alongside Laos and Sierra Leone, previously subject to partial restrictions. The restrictions will remain in place until these nations demonstrate significant improvements in identity management, information sharing, and cooperation with U.S. immigration authorities. Important exceptions apply, excluding lawful permanent residents, existing visa holders, diplomats, and athletes participating in major sporting events. Case-by-case waivers will also be available if travel is deemed to serve the national interest. The U.S. administration's strategy hinges on these nations' demonstrable progress in addressing key security and immigration concerns, reflecting a continued effort to strengthen border control and national security. UAE announces withdrawal from Yemen following Saudi strike. The United Arab Emirates has announced its complete withdrawal of remaining military forces from Yemen, triggered by a recent Saudi-led airstrike targeting a shipment allegedly destined for UAE-backed separatist forces in the southern port city of Mukalla. This decision follows a demand from Yemen's Presidential Council for the UAE to vacate the country within 24 hours. The UAE vehemently denies the shipment contained weapons, expressing deep regret at the Saudi accusations. For over a decade, the UAE and Saudi Arabia have been key allies in the war against the Iran-backed Houthi movement in Yemen. But escalating infighting between their supported factions has created a significant rift. Saudi Arabia accused the UAE of pressuring the Southern Transitional Council, STC, which seeks independence for southern Yemen, to launch offensives in the eastern provinces of Hadramaut and Al-Mara. Saudi Arabia views these actions as a threat to the kingdom's national security and regional stability. In response, Saudi Arabia warned it would take measures to counter these highly dangerous actions. The UAE's defense ministry announced the termination of its counterterrorism personnel in Yemen, citing recent developments and their potential impact on mission safety and effectiveness. This withdrawal follows 6 years of UAE military involvement. Yemen's Presidential Council, including STC representatives, issued an ultimatum for the UAE's immediate departure, citing the need to protect citizen security and uphold Yemen's unity. The council also declared a 90-day state of emergency to confront the Houthis and mutinous military elements allegedly receiving orders from the UAE. The STC leaders dismissed the UAE's ultimatum as unilateral and without legal basis, reaffirming their intention to remain a main partner in the fight against the Houthis. Tensions remain high, with both sides accusing each other of destabilizing actions within Yemen. The situation highlights the complex and increasingly fractured dynamics within the Yemeni conflict, with the UAE's withdrawal representing a significant shift in the ongoing struggle. Jimmy Lai's deteriorating health raises serious concerns in Hong Kong prison. The health of Jimmy Lai, the jailed Hong Kong pro-democracy tycoon, is rapidly declining, according to his daughter, Claire Lai, who has expressed grave concerns about his condition while incarcerated. Lai, 78, has been detained since December 2020 and recently received a life sentence after being convicted of collusion with foreign forces under Hong Kong's national security law. The Chinese authorities maintain that Lai is in good health, but Lai's family insists otherwise. Claire Lai stated that she fears she may never see him again, emphasizing her worry that he is becoming a martyr. She described a stark contrast between her father's robust state upon entering prison and his current condition, noting a significant weight loss over the past year. Lai suffers from diabetes and heart issues, conditions he reportedly did not have prior to his imprisonment. Specifically, Lai's fingernails are exhibiting signs of distress, sometimes turning purplish gray and falling off, and his teeth are rotting. He also experiences persistent back and waist pain, to the point where he struggles to stand and occasionally cannot get out of bed. These issues have been repeatedly flagged by Lai's family. The Chinese authorities have repeatedly asserted that Lai's lawful rights and interests are being fully protected and that he is in a safe, humane, appropriate, and healthy custodial environment. However, the family's continued assertions about Lai's deteriorating health are fueling international scrutiny. Claire Lai is currently leading a campaign to secure his release, highlighting the urgent need for international pressure on the Hong Kong and Chinese governments. The situation underscores serious concerns about the conditions of detention and the potential for human rights violations within the prison system. Thailand releases Cambodian soldiers following renewed ceasefire. Following weeks of intense border clashes and a fragile initial ceasefire, Thailand released 18 Cambodian soldiers held since July, marking a significant step towards de-escalating tensions between the two Southeast Asian nations. The release, confirmed by both Thai and Cambodian authorities, occurred as part of a renewed ceasefire agreement brokered after a previous deal collapsed. The conflict, sparked by long-standing disagreements over border territory and exacerbated by incidents like patriotic song performances and subsequent clashes, had displaced over 500,000 civilians and resulted in numerous casualties. The operation involved a handover at the Prum International Border Checkpoint in Palan Province, Cambodia, following a 155-day detention period for the soldiers. Both sides acknowledged the importance of the release as a demonstration of goodwill and a crucial step in translating the commitments of the joint statement into tangible action. The International Committee of the Red Cross supervised the repatriation process, ensuring adherence to international humanitarian law. The initial ceasefire, brokered by U.S. President Donald Trump and Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, had been disrupted by renewed tensions early this month, with accusations of ceasefire violations exchanged between the countries. A key condition of the renewed agreement was the immediate release of the detained soldiers within 72 hours. However, a one-day delay occurred due to Thai concerns regarding Cambodian drone activity. Despite this setback, the ceasefire appears to be holding, signifying a potential path towards stability in the disputed border region. The release represents a vital step in fostering mutual trust and confidence, allowing families to be reunited and signaling a commitment to peaceful resolution of the long-standing territorial dispute. The operation was overseen by the ICRC, emphasizing the humanitarian aspect of the conflict resolution. Guinea's Doumbouya secures landslide victory amidst controversy. General Mamadi Doumbouya secured a decisive victory in Guinea's presidential election, garnering 86.7% of the vote, according to initial election commission results, marking a significant step in legitimizing his 2021 military coup. The election has been widely criticized by civil society groups and opposition parties, who allege systematic fraud, ballot stuffing, and intimidation, citing the bearing of key opposition candidates like Abdoulaye Yero Bald. Doumbouya, previously promising not to run for office, capitalized on a newly implemented constitution, allowing him to contest the election, securing a 7-year mandate. Concerns regarding the legitimacy of the election have been amplified by restrictions on social media platforms, including TikTok, YouTube, and Facebook, reported by NetBlocks. The junta's justification for these restrictions remains unconfirmed, fueling suspicions of an attempt to suppress dissent. Despite official claims of a voter turnout exceeding 80%, the National Front for the Defense of the Constitution asserts a significant boycott, indicating widespread dissatisfaction. 6 other candidates received less than 2% of the vote, with Mohamed Naib achieving 0.8%. The exclusion of prominent opposition parties, RPG, ARC, and SEAL and UFDG, further diminished the political landscape. Doumbouya's initial justification for overthrowing then-President Alpha Condé, rampant corruption, human rights abuses, and economic mismanagement, has been maintained. Guinea possesses substantial bauxite and iron ore reserves, but faces persistent poverty, with over half the population living below the poverty line. The launch of the massive Samandu iron ore mine has generated anticipation. However, this has not alleviated the existing socio-economic challenges. The Supreme Court has 8 days to validate the results if challenged. The election's outcome is being scrutinized globally due to the circumstances surrounding the coup and the lack of genuine political competition. Khaleda Zia, a nation mourns its first female prime minister. Hundreds of thousands of mourners from across Bangladesh and international dignitaries attended the state funeral of Khaleda Zia, the country's first female prime minister, who died at 80 from a prolonged illness. The funeral, held in Dhaka, marked the end of her extraordinary political journey, beginning as a homemaker and culminating in a pivotal role in Bangladesh's democratic struggles. Thousands of security personnel were deployed, and flags flew at half-mast as a motorcade carrying her body passed near Parliament House. Zia's legacy is deeply intertwined with Bangladesh's political history. She rose to prominence challenging military rule under General Ershad, and alongside her rival Sheikh Hasina, advocating for democracy and resisting autocratic tendencies. Known as an uncompromising leader, she led the BNP through 2 periods of leadership, first in 1991 and again in 2001, often battling against the -2 formula, aimed at excluding her and Hasina from power. Despite facing detentions and convictions under Hasina's Awami League government, Zia remained a symbol of resistance and a popular figure, admired for her resilience and unwavering principles. Her supporters, representing diverse political backgrounds, turned out in large numbers to honor her memory. She was known for her insightful questioning and valuing informed decision-making. As noted by economist Debapriya Bhattacharya, Zia is buried next to her husband Ziaur Rahman, who was assassinated in 1981. In her final years, she intended to run for parliament in 2026, a key election for the BNP, with her son Tariq Rahman expected to lead if the party returns to power. Rahman, who had been in self-imposed exile for 17 years, returned to Bangladesh last week. The event underscores the profound impact of Zia's life and legacy on Bangladesh's democratic aspirations and future political landscape, reflecting on a leader who shaped the nation's aspirations. Bella One's bold move, crew paints Russian flag amidst U.S. pursuit. The U.S. Coast Guard continues its nearly 2-week pursuit of the aging oil tanker, the Bella One, in the Atlantic Ocean. Following a dramatic development, the crew has painted a rudimentary Russian flag on the ship's hull. This action, confirmed by a U.S. official, appears to be an attempt to solicit Russian protection amid the ongoing legal and strategic complexities. The Coast Guard, maintaining a distance of approximately half a mile, observed the hastily painted insignia. The Bella One's resistance to seizure began on December 21st, when the vessel executed a U-turn in the Caribbean Sea after the Coast Guard attempted to intercept it en route to Venezuela to collect oil. Since then, the tanker has evaded attempts at seizure. The newly painted flag represents the latest turn in this protracted operation. Initially, the Bella One was registered under the flag of Guyana, a registration deemed invalid by U.S. officials. The vessel's current registration status is listed as not known on the Equasis shipping database. This deliberate ambiguity complicates the legal process surrounding a potential seizure. U.S. officials now believe it is unlikely the Bella One will return to Venezuela to load oil, and the Trump administration may reconsider its efforts to seize the ship. However, assets are prepared for a potential reattempt, requiring a specialized maritime special response team. The pursuit is rooted in President Trump's order to implement a blockade of sanctioned Venezuelan oil tankers, intended to exert pressure on President Nicolas Maduro's regime. The crew's refusal to comply with the Coast Guard's initial attempts to interdict the vessel is perplexing. 2 other oil tankers yielded to the Coast Guard's efforts this month. The situation highlights the challenges involved in targeting vessels operating outside international maritime law, and the strategic considerations driving the U.S.'s approach to sanctions enforcement. The legal ramifications and the crew's motivations remain key uncertainties in this ongoing maritime drama. U.S. stock market concludes 2025 year with strong gains despite volatility. The U.S. stock market concluded 2025 with robust gains, marking the 3rd consecutive year of double-digit growth, despite significant volatility driven primarily by President Donald Trump's global trade tariffs. The S&P 500 index is projected to end the year up approximately 17%, while the Nasdaq Composite is poised for a 21% increase, and the Russell 2000 index of smaller companies has risen roughly 12% year-to-date. Initial market turbulence in April, triggered by Trump's tariffs, nearly pushed the S&P 500 into bear market territory, but a subsequent reversal occurred after Trump scaled back the most aggressive measures, alleviating investor fears. A key factor in the market's resilience has been strong corporate earnings growth, particularly within the technology sector. Enthusiasm surrounding artificial intelligence investments fueled outperformance among the top 5 companies: NVIDIA, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, and Alphabet, which collectively account for nearly 30% of the S&P 500. However, concerns regarding an AI bubble have emerged, prompting scrutiny of valuations within these tech firms. Notably, growth is broadening beyond the tech sector, with average-sized companies demonstrating increased earnings growth in the 3rd quarter of 2025, a development highlighted by Deutsche Bank's Parag that as a key development. This diversification offers a potential buffer against tech-specific downturns. Investor demand for safe haven assets, such as gold, increased significantly due to geopolitical tensions and expectations of interest rate cuts. The price of gold is on track for a nearly 70% yearly increase. Bitcoin, despite initial support from the Trump administration, has struggled to maintain gains and is poised to end 2025 slightly lower. Despite the overall market strength, analysts express caution, noting that a shift in investor focus away from big tech stocks is already underway. Concerns persist about overvalued stocks outside the tech sector, with Vanguard predicting annualized returns of 3.5% to 5.5% for U.S. stocks over the next decade, a more subdued outlook compared to recent gains. Policy risk remains a significant factor, with analysts stating that it is not subsiding. Gold and silver 2025 gains signal potential 2026 correction. The year 2025 witnessed a remarkable surge in both gold and silver prices, marking the largest annual gain since 1979, primarily fueled by expectations of future interest rate cuts by the U.S. Federal Reserve. Gold reached a record high of over $4,549 an ounce before experiencing a decline post-Christmas, while silver peaked at $83.62. This performance was driven by a confluence of factors including central bank purchases, investor demand for safe haven assets amidst global economic uncertainty and geopolitical tensions, and concerns over inflation. Several key entities contributed to this trend. Central banks globally increased their gold reserves, and investor interest in exchange-traded funds, ETFs providing easy access to precious metals, significantly boosted demand. China, the world's 2nd largest silver producer, implemented export restrictions on the metal, further contributing to supply tightness and driving up prices. Tesla CEO Elon Musk highlighted the importance of silver in industrial processes, emphasizing the metal's strategic value. Experts caution that the substantial gains experienced in 2025 make gold and silver vulnerable to a potential pullback in 2026. Dan Coatsworth of AJ Bell noted that investors might liquidate positions in assets that have delivered strong gains, with gold fitting this profile. Rania Gul from XSCOM anticipates continued gold price increases in 2026, but at a more stable pace compared to the record highs of 2025. Furthermore, high levels of government debt in the US and UK, alongside concerns about Donald Trump's tariffs and the potential for an AI bubble, continue to support investor confidence in precious metals. The supply-side dynamics, particularly China's export restrictions on silver, are also expected to play a significant role in determining future price movements. The The overall market backdrop remains relatively unchanged, suggesting continued opportunities for investors, albeit with the caveat of potential corrections following the impressive gains of 2025. Disney to pay $10 million over children's privacy law violations. The Walt Disney Company is facing a $10 million settlement with the U.S. Federal Trade Commission, FTC, to resolve allegations of violating children's privacy laws through the unlabeled distribution of YouTube videos. This settlement, announced Tuesday, stems from the FTC's investigation into Disney's practices regarding the collection of children's personal data and targeted advertising. The core issue revolves around Disney's failure to properly label videos on YouTube as made for children, a requirement established following a 2019 settlement between the FTC and Google, YouTube's parent company. This labeling rule was designed to prevent targeted advertising and personal data collection directed at children, in accordance with the 1998 Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, COPPA. COPPA mandates that content creators who produce material for children under 13 must notify parents and obtain their consent before collecting any personal information. Disney's actions circumvented this law by allowing targeted advertising to children through unlabeled YouTube videos. The FTC argued that this constituted a breach of privacy and a violation of COPPA. As part of the settlement, Disney has agreed to establish a compliance program to adhere to children's data protection laws. The agreement specifically covers Disney Worldwide Services, Inc. and Disney Entertainment Operations, LLC. Importantly, the settlement does not extend to Disney-owned and operated digital platforms, limiting its scope to the distribution of content solely on YouTube. Assistant Attorney General Brett Shumate emphasized the Justice Department's commitment to ensuring parental control over children's data. This case highlights the ongoing regulatory scrutiny surrounding children's online privacy and the importance of adhering to laws like COPPA. The $10 million payment represents a significant financial penalty for Disney's alleged non-compliance and a clear signal regarding the enforcement of children's online privacy regulations. Machu Picchu train collisions result in fatalities and injuries. A tragic incident involving 2 trains near Machu Picchu in Peru has resulted in 1 death and dozens injured. 2 trains operated by Peru Rail and Inca Rail collided on Tuesday on the single track connecting Ollantaytambo Station and Aguascalientes, the closest town to the famed archaeological site. Initial reports indicate a train coming from Machu Picchu collided with a train headed there near Corihuarachina, another archaeological site. 1 death occurred, confirmed to be a railroad worker, according to Cuzco Police Captain Jonathan Castillo Gonzalez. Approximately 40 individuals sustained injuries, with at least 20 in serious condition. Hundreds of tourists remain at the scene awaiting evacuation, a process complicated by the challenging terrain surrounding the crash site. Emergency services, including 20 ambulances, responded to the scene and transported the injured to medical facilities in Cusco. The UK Foreign Office and the US Embassy in Peru have confirmed involvement, stating they are supporting British and American nationals affected by the accident. The collision has led to the suspension of railway services along the affected track. The trains typically take around 90 minutes to complete the journey. Peru Rail expressed deep regret over the incident and stated that immediate first aid was provided to those involved. Machu Picchu, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, attracts approximately 1.5 million visitors annually, primarily by train to Aguascalientes. The site, built in the 15th century by the Incas, is renowned for its perfectly fitted stone bricks. Recent years have seen a 25% increase in visitor numbers, but tourism has also been impacted by political instability and disputes concerning site management, occasionally leading to road blockages. Visitors can also reach Machu Picchu via a 4-day trek from Ollantaytambo. Investigations into the cause of the crash are ongoing. Glacier melt threatens volcanic eruptions worldwide. A growing concern is emerging regarding the potential for increased volcanic activity, linked to accelerated glacier melt driven by climate change. Iceland's Bardarbunga volcano, currently exhibiting signs of awakening after a decade of dormancy, serves as a key example, highlighting the complex relationship between retreating ice and volcanic behavior. Scientists are investigating whether the reduced pressure exerted by melting glaciers is triggering magma movement beneath Europe's largest glacier, Vatnajökull, Kull, potentially leading to a significant eruption. The situation is not isolated to Iceland. Researchers are examining similar dynamics in other ice-covered volcanoes globally, including those in southern Chile, where a substantial magma chamber formed beneath the Patagonian ice sheet during the last ice age. The sudden loss of ice pressure caused the chamber to expand, resulting in explosive eruptions. This phenomenon is being replicated in other locations, such as Antarctica, where approximately 130 active and dormant volcanoes lie beneath the continent's vast ice sheet. The potential consequences are substantial. Hundreds of thousands of people live within 60 miles of ice-covered volcanoes, and the risk of devastating eruptions is amplified by the possibility of rapid water production, leading to dangerous mudflows and floods. The situation is further complicated by feedback loops. Volcanic eruptions themselves can contribute to climate change through the release of greenhouse gases, while warming temperatures accelerate glacier melt, intensifying the risk. Scientists are racing to understand the long-term impacts. While some volcanoes might become less hazardous as ice retreats, others could experience more frequent or larger eruptions. The lag time between ice loss and volcanic response can vary, potentially spanning thousands of years. The study of these interactions is challenging due to the remote locations and deep-seated nature of volcanic activity. Recent research in Chile, led by Pablo Moreno Jaeger, analyzed 6 volcanoes beneath the Patagonian ice sheet, dating eruptions back thousands of years. This work revealed a crucial detail: the ice sheet's retreat triggered a surge in volcanic activity. The eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815, which caused a year without summer, demonstrates the broader impact of volcanic eruptions on global climate. Despite the uncertainties, the overarching message is clear: the accelerating pace of climate change is fundamentally altering the Earth's geological landscape, posing a heightened risk of volcanic eruptions worldwide. Ongoing research and monitoring are crucial to mitigating these potential hazards and understanding the intricate interplay between ice magma and the planet's climate system.